almost every position I took, depending on how you charted it, from like title and salary, I almost always took a dip
Mm.
and then climbed up another curve.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to Educative Sessions, a podcast series with people in the developer world about their coding experiences. This is brought to you by Educative, which makes it easy for authors to provide interactive and adaptive courses for software developers. My name is Lee Ngo. Today, my guest is Zhong Punkunus, who is the founder and CEO of Sudozi. And today we're going to talk about something a little avant-garde for me, which is not ignore that feeling, even if you're already making data-driven decisions. Rose, welcome to the show.
Thank you, Lee. Really great to be here and just chat about everything.
Well, thank you for being here. And, when we were discussing the plans leading up to this talk, I was really impressed by how illustrious your professional career has been. So I'd love for you to start with your undergrad days and go from there.
Sure, sounds good. And I'll start even slightly before that, wherein I actually did some programming. I did a little C++ in high school and just been really quantitative overall, and wound up at MIT. So fortunate to get in and to go. And I really love my experience there. The program is set up where you can really take classes in any department. I wound up taking courses in something like 10 different departments during my time there, just to be able to explore everything. I also did a bunch of leadership activities. Particularly, I was president of my sorority and varsity captain of the varsity volleyball team towards my senior year. I really learned more maybe from those activities than the formal coursework there. And yeah.
I love that. I relate to that a lot. It's funny because I look back on my undergraduate and even graduate days, and then no one ever tells you this, but you actually remember a lot more from certain kinds of activities rather than just sitting in classrooms.
Totally.
Not to say that classrooms aren't important in their own way. So I guess I want to get up to the point where after you were at MIT, what did you do next? Yeah.
Yeah. So towards the end of my time at MIT, I decided I majored in economics after taking courses in all these random departments. So I majored in economics and thought I wanted to pursue a PhD. I had been doing some research, really enjoyed that. And so I found myself in a research fellowship program at Stanford at the law school doing economic research.
Wow, that's great. Yeah. And from there you were studying economic research, but then you were, I guess, fully in academic mode at that time, or was there some other path for you?
Yeah, it was pretty academic, and actually it was a little bit different doing it in a full-time setting compared to doing research while you were in undergrad. And I quickly found out that I like to be a little bit more operational. And so during my time at Stanford, I actually picked up coaching girls volleyball. So I coached JV volleyball at Gunn High School, which is in Palo Alto, and then also some nearby club teams. So yeah, coaching volleyball and doing economic research in the Bay Area.
Nice, nice. Wow, that's great. So, I will say, like, it sounds like when you were pursuing your professional experiences, you there was something that I noted that you changed your roles a lot. Like it was you went from one kind of position to another kind of position, and it was never like you come from an economics background, but you were never, say, consistently in economics or finance, right? I'd love to know what was going through your mind as you were making these
Yeah.
pivots in your career along the way.
Yeah. One of the frameworks that I have is just a framework or styles that I have is really just dive in, really get down to the weeds, do as much as I can and learn as much as I can. And it's okay to continue to re-optimize.
Right.
Yeah, as you mentioned, I started in economic research and then sort of had a couple pivots since then, and we can talk about any of these as well. So pivoted to be more of an operator in strategy and analytics, and then pivoted to be within finance. And now I'm CEO founder of this fintech SaaS company. And so a couple pivots, things, the way I think about them is each time I felt like I could have a bigger impact in that new role, as well as my incremental learning would be higher and I would be gaining more in that new role as well. So that's kind of how I thought about the different pivots, and happy to talk about any of the specific ones.
Yeah, I mean, I do want to follow up on how it sounds like learning and being challenged is a priority for you when it comes to making these kinds of decisions, right? How do
Completely.
how do you balance that with things like how much you could make, or your comfort zone, or perhaps senses of stability? I mean, I think a
Oh
lot of
yeah.
people, when they make those decisions, they have to weigh those options, right?
Yeah, yeah. No, almost every position I took, depending on how you charted it, from like title and salary, I almost always took a dip
Mm,
and then climbed up another curve. So, one example a little bit further in my career is I went from having a very good title and position at Apple in the iTunes group, running video analytics, to going to Uber at the time in 2013, this really taxi cab like startup that had I had a really low base salary, and I had this thing, like this equity thing, that not a lot of people, particularly my family, knew a lot about. And so I people thought that that was probably the craziest move
right, right.
I've made at the time there.
Absolutely. I mean, to describe equity to anybody, much less probably how family members, it's such a potentially intangible thing, but a high risk, high reward thing that must have been a nerve wracking explanation. It's like, no, 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 you have to see the bigger picture, right?
Yeah, yeah,
Um,
yeah.
and one of the core of what we wanted to talk about today is that feeling, right?
Hmm.
You mentioned that you are you come from an economics background, you work in technology. All of these things speak to making decisions based on data, but
Right, right.
you mentioned this feeling that is almost abstracted or independent, or I'll let you explain what it means, but how do you balance making decisions when you know that the data might speak one way, predictably, but
Yeah,
your instincts are telling you something else?
yeah, yeah. And the way that I sort of rationalize that is I wind up trying to find data that supports the feeling. So I know it's the line about data versus not data then moves for me.
Right.
And you're right. You're absolutely right. It starts with that feeling that, oh, like, I could be learning a little bit more. Oh, this is super fascinating. I don't think I'll have a chance to do that in my current role.
Hmm.
And so those are there's no better way to describe those are instincts, right? Those are curiosities, that an itch, like an intellectual itch that you just feel like you have to scratch, and you want to pursue that more. Of course, having to balance current commitments to tactically, whether it's specific projects or teams. A couple of times I had my own team that I then had to transition, where people would report to if I left, and all that. But certainly, thinking, having an instinct, and then coming back a week, 2 weeks later, and if that still is there, then and trying to find a way to dig in more with the data and understand what data is driving that instinct, and then making a decision from there.
Wow. I have to ask a challenging question based on what you said, though.
Yeah.
It's and forgive me, this is me coming from an academic scientific background where you have your, I mean, you have your theory, right, or your feeling, and then you're looking for data to reinforce that. Isn't that almost like a confirmation bias that might be going on, right? Um, how how do you, if you're, it doesn't matter. You do what you want to do, but like, is there a way to think about it almost more hypothetically, right? Like
Uh-huh.
that,
Uh-huh.
that maybe there's something that you have a feeling, but it might be the wrong feeling, or it might be, you need to almost disprove this feeling, before you fully commit to it. Have you ever had experiences like that, or is that really
Oh
not your
yeah, yeah.
process?
No, totally. No, I can totally see
Sorry,
where
it
you're
almost
coming
sounds
from.
insulting in a way, but I'm trying
No,
not
no,
to
not at
be
all.
very delicate about this. Yeah.
No, not at all. I think, as I'm thinking back, I'm talking about more, in hindsight, you see, you already know what you did, right? So I'm talking about decisions where I did ultimately pursue, a new job or a new
Hmm.
role.
Hmm.
There's certainly times when I didn't change course, right? The path that I was on, whether it was staying at Uber or being in the finance role, like the path that I was on continued. And in those, I guess what I'm trying to express is when I have those instincts, um, being quantitative and data driven, I believe that those instincts are being driven by some data. And so then it's a search for what data is driving that instinct that is maybe a third or a fourth derivative away from like the actual surface data that might make sense, whether it's salary or title or something like that. And there are certainly times when I dug deeper and decided, oh, like this is what's driving it. This is what's causing the instinct. Probably not best to scratch that itch right now. And it may make sense to do that later. And then one quick example is when I was doing my economics research, I also helped found a girls like an entrepreneurship program. And I did that for a little bit, and there was an instinct to continue doing that. But ultimately, it was a side project, and I continued to pursue my main career because I think that my impact on doing that can be bigger later on in my career. And so there was certainly that instinct there, but at that moment, I didn't fully listen to it, and I took stayed on course, if you will.
Really appreciate that elaboration, and I hope that I didn't come off questioning your scientific process.
No,
but it really, I mean, it was just very much like, I think it's just something that I think a lot of people are going to also encounter as well. And what I actually appreciated the most is that you're not looking to validate or invalidate. You're actually looking to explore and understand what might be data or what might actually be something else, right?
Yeah.
Fascinating to me. Rose, we've come to the end of all the questions I've had, and I think I inserted several more because, gosh, like you've taken me in a lot of interesting directions. I'd love to give you an opportunity to do a shameless plug of sorts to really talk about your company or really whatever cause you like. The floor is yours.
Yeah, no, I'll connect the conversation we had earlier to this, where the last role I had was being CFO of a startup here in Austin. And as that startup unfortunately didn't do so well during COVID, I came to the decision, do I want to be in a finance role at another company, or do I want to build finance software that I would have used and then can actually impact more people beyond just me and the team that I'm running? And so that's how I wound up starting Sudozi. We are building software to help finance teams manage budgets and work more collaboratively with their department leads. And I excited to share more. If there are any finance folks on listening to this, happy to chat more individually, but really excited to embark on this new journey as founder CEO and in a much smaller organization that I'm sure you can relate to in this program.
For sure. And I mean, that's wonderful to hear that, like, it's that especially in these challenging times we're in, that the entrepreneurial spirit doesn't go away, especially for someone like you. At the same time, I think we've talked extensively during this podcast about how there's a lot of prudence that goes into your processes as well. So that's really fantastic to hear. Rose Punkunus, thank you so much for being on Educative Sessions. I really appreciate everything that you shared, and wish you nothing but the best of luck with everything that's going on with you. I also want to thank everybody who is either watching this on YouTube or listening to us on various major podcasting platforms. If you want to see more of our content, you can check us out, of course, on YouTube and on these platforms as well. And lastly, if you want to learn about Educative, please look us up at educative.io. So for all of us here at Educative, thank you so much and happy learning. Bye-bye now.
Thanks.
Hope you enjoyed that session. This episode is available on YouTube and also on many podcast platforms. If you'd like to be part of Educative Sessions, the form is open now to apply via the link below. You can also email me at lee@educative.io. Lastly, don't forget to like and comment on our content. Be sure to subscribe for us as well. And of course, you can learn more about us at educative.io. Happy learning.